But anyways, so remember that the median, when we have a median for a triangle, what we're gonna do is we're gonna draw out a line and it's gonna split this into two equal parts, right? So it says, if GW is equal to, or what's GW if XW is 14? So the entire thing is 14, right? So what is the relationship between XW and GW? If you remember, we're trying to set this up so we can do like an equation, I guess, in a sense, right? So can anybody tell me again, how much of GW is XW? Or the other way around?
Half of it.
It's half of it, right? So we can say that half of GW is equal to the whole thing, right? Or actually the other way around, sorry. Half of XW is equal to GW, right? Or we could also say that 2 GWs are going to give us XW, right? Either one works, okay? Let's just go with half. Since we know that XW is equal to 14, all we need to do is multiply 14 times 1/2, and then we'll get GW. So what's GW then?
7.
7, good. So we know that this part is 7. And just as an added question, what is GX going to be?
7.
It's also 7, because together 7 and 7 will give us a total of 14. Good. Okay. What about number 6? It says y to z if iz is 3. So if I to z is 3, then what is the whole thing y to z?
6.
6, right? And you figured that out by saying, okay, we know that iz is 3. So what does yi have to be? Also 3. So together, they give us the entire thing, which is 6. Good. Okay, so we'll work on the algebra ones tomorrow. But the homework is based off of this last one. And I don't remember if we necessarily did this. But if you guys remember, I think we might have left off on this one. So every triangle has 3 medians, okay? And if you can see, because we have 3 corners, right? So every triangle is going to have 3 medians. So from here to here, from here to here, and from here to here, right? So we can say that the medians here are AD. We have CE. And we have BF. So this point in the middle is where all of the medians line up, or they intersect, right? So we can say that the intersection of the 3 medians is called the centroid, okay? So the centroid is a point where they all meet. In this case, we have point P. Okay. So we're going to learn a little bit about what the theorem of a median is, okay? So it asks you to say, all right, let's look at RT. Let's look at the median RT. What is a bigger part? What is a smaller part, okay? So if I were to name the bigger part of RT, what is it? What is a bigger part of R to T?
R is the bigger part, right?
So from R to P, right? From R to P, that's our bigger part. What is the smaller part then?
T to P.
Right. T to P or P to T, whichever way you want to put it. Okay. So that's a smaller part of the median. Now here's what we know. Okay. R to P is 2/3 of the entire thing. Okay, actually the other way around. I keep doing this backwards. So the bigger part of the median is 2/3 of the entire thing. And the smaller part from P to T is equal to the other third of the entire thing, okay? So both of these things together are going to be equal to RT, right? So if we add RP plus PT together, we get RT. But R to P is the bigger part, which would be 2/3. And then P to T is the smaller part, which is 1/3 of the entire thing. Okay. And then together they equal, of course, the whole RT. Okay. So let's actually put this in with numbers, right? So what is the information that is given to us here? We don't have the entire thing, but what's the number that we do have there?
10.
10, and what does that represent?
RP.
RP.
P to R.
Right. RP is equal to 10. So if we replace that into that equation that I just drew up over here, 10 should be equal to 2/3 RT. Okay. And based off of that, we should be able to figure out what the entire thing is. Okay. So how would we figure this out? How do we solve for RT?
Make 10 a fraction. Put it over
What?
1, right? Put 10 over 1.
10 over 1, and then we're going to multiply both sides by what? Remember, we call it the reciprocal, right? So
But 10.
by 3/2, remember? So we're canceling out 2/3, and then we're going to multiply 10 over 1 times 3/2. So I should be 10 times 3, which is 30, and 2 times 1, which is 2, divided by 2 is 15. So the entire thing is equal to 15. Okay. So now that I know that the entire thing is 15, how would I find the rest of it?
Dividing it.
I mean, not dividing it. Again, let's not think too hard about it, right? If I know the entire thing and I know the bigger part of it, so I know that R to T is equal to 15, and I know that R to P is equal to 10. So what is P to T going to be?
Got that.
Sorry?
Well, I'm gonna write it down.
It's 5, right?
It's 5, exactly. So see, it's like, let's not think too hard about it, right? Because we know that the two things together are going to equal the entire thing. So if we know that the bigger part is 10 then the smaller part has to be 5 because together they're going to equal 15. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
So let's apply this to some actual problems, okay? So for example, the first one says, okay, we know that I to L is 14.4. So I to L is 14.4. And it says to find LV. So is I to L the bigger part or the smaller part?
Bigger.
It's the bigger part. And remember, the bigger part represents 2/3 of the entire thing. So I to L is going to equal 2/3 of what?
I to V.
I to V. Good. Good, good. So again, we know that IL is 14.4, right? So we're just gonna solve it again like we just did up there. We multiply both sides by 3/2. So that should be 14.4. 14.4 times 3 divided by 2, which is 21.6. So the entire thing is 21.6. So how would we find the smaller part? So again, we know that the entire thing is 21.6. And we know that the bigger part is 14.4. So how do we find the smaller part?
Subtract it.
We're gonna subtract that, yeah, minus 14.4. L to B is 7.2. Okay. So let's do one like number 12, okay? With that one, we're trying to find the entire thing, E to C. And they give us MC. So let's think, what is the relationship between MC and EC? Is MC the bigger or the smaller part of the median?
Smaller.
It's the smaller part. And how much of the entire thing does the smaller part represent?
1/3.
1/3, yeah. So 1/3 of the entire thing is equal to MC. And we already know that MC is equal to 6.4. So let's solve this. How do we solve this equation that we just set up?
Multiply by 1/3 on this side.
Not by 1/3, but we're going to multiply by the reciprocal, 3/1, which is the same thing as saying multiply by 3, right? So if we multiply the entire thing by 3, that's 3 times 6.4. 3 times 6.4 is 19.2. So the entire thing, EC, is equal to 19.2. Okay. So oh my gosh, sorry guys. Okay. So let me see if I can, let me just make sure that like the examples that I put up. Okay, so the homework should look something like this, right? It says that n is a centroid and g to n is 38. So we're focused on this line right here, g, because it's asking us for the entire thing, g to l, right? And it tells us that this part right here is 38. So what's the relationship between gn and gl? Is gn the bigger or the smaller part?
Bigger.
It's a bigger part. So how much of the entire thing does it represent?
2/3.
2/3. So gn is equal to 38. And we're trying to solve GL. So again, I mean, the process, the steps are always the same to solve this, right? So what would we do to solve this equation?
Multiply the 2/3 on each side.
But don't forget it's not 2/3, it's the reciprocal, 3/2. Okay?
Okay.
So GL is equal to, I guess we would say 38 times 3 divided by 2 is 57. So the entire thing would be equal to 57. So that's what your homework is going to be based on for today. Tomorrow we'll focus a little more on the actual algebra.